I think my big message is really that recovery is a process, not a destination. And so in reflecting around this whole issue of recovery, I think kind of the realisation is that I'm actually a recoverer. I'm not a mental health consumer, I'm not a person that's got an illness, I'm a recoverer. And I think it's a nice way of thinking about recovery. And I think along those lines is that sometimes I'm recovering really well, and sometimes I'm doing a terrible job at recovering. But it's a recovering process. And I also think the other side of recovery is that I was actually recovering before I got a diagnosis. It's just I didn't know. It was just my mind trying to get on top of things until it couldn't. I had a diagnosis in over 20 years ago. It started out as a depressive diagnosis and became sort of anxiety related, and then an attention deficit disorder related. So essentially I had a head that was kind of in overdrive. And I suppose the other side, which was probably most concerning, was that I had this persistent suicidality. So I kind of spent a lot of time through my career, I could find ways to die everywhere, every intersection, every tree. And it was almost a reaction to, I needed to shut off the pain. And that was kind of the ultimate solution. 20 years later, I found a place and a team around me that's really kind of key. And that's the other message for me, is that it's about team. I know it sounds a bit, it seems sort of a bit cliched, but it is finding that sense of the right kind of, whether it's clinical support, therapy, family, and friends, and that collectively gives you a sense of being able to check yourself, to see where things are at, for them to call you out on behaviours when you're not seeing it. And I think for me the other piece that was key was that my wife, of sort of 30 odd years, who was stubborn enough to stick around. I can't believe how lucky I am in that sort of context. And the kids. We didn't, in our family, illness and all those things, we were quite transparent. There was no sense of hiding that, which made a really big difference. It's not okay to have suicidality. You can take all the drugs you need to try and manage what was going on in my mind. And so that really became a big life change for me. It was stepping away from corporate life, spending more time, I guess at home and being around. That was kind of key. Yeah, I think I'd almost could say that's the best medicine that money can buy. And I sort of got into swimming, a little bit overweight, so I needed a gravity assisted form of exercise. And then the two things that really made a big difference was that other sort of connection, which is beyond the inner connections, was getting to the park. I had a dog, so we walked to the park, and and that kind of gave you a license to talk to people. So my tip is, even if you don't have a dog, find a dog, go to the park. It's fantastic. And I think the other little thing for me was also just meeting people. What I stopped doing was doing big shops. I did little shops and kept turning up at the same places, and then striking up this little kind of conversation with, the workers in the shop. And it was extraordinary, because those little tiny friendly connections with strangers actually make a huge difference. It's like it's a constant recovery process. It doesn't end. It's just I'm recovering, and it's really about saying, well, at times I'll do it better than others.